Hello, welcome back. I'm Miniature Mike, and today we're going to continue the series on looking at characters and comparing them with each other, and just kind of seeing which ones, what are the best types of characters from that name. And for this one, we're going to do Wedge Antilles. Doing this one based on a request and a comment from a prior video. So, Wedge Antilles, really cool character. All three of his versions in the game are very, very similar with little tweaks. And one of them, in particular, is pretty incredible. One little background I want to give before I jump into this one is so I've actually changed. I've tried to change and update my grading format a little bit. And so what I'm doing is my grading format's going to be basically, as you know, I go through and kind of rank 1 out of 5 how the stat or how the character performs or how they do in certain areas. 1 out of 5. And then I'm going to weight that against just kind of in general, like how good is that character compared to, the other kind of characters it represents. Like, hey, compared to the other Luke Skywalkers in general, how is this Luke Skywalker? Like, is he just kind of an average one, a bad one, a great one? And then the last thing I'm going to do is I figured out a way and I think it's valuable, but I'm going to use the blue milk rating as like a component of the score to try to help kind of balance it out. Since on blue milk, there's lots of reviews and they're all pretty skewed to the right. So I took a look at like all characters in miniatures. The average rating people give is about a 6.7. The highest is a little over 9, and the lowest is in the 3 range. So I figured a way I would convert that over to my scale, and then at the end of the day, we'd have a nicely packaged kind of a final rating for the character based on how they do when it comes to just how I think they are against characters in their same cost bracket, how they are compared to other characters of the same type that we're currently reviewing, and then kind of how they shape up, like kind of what the users feel about them on Blue Milk. So we'll see that when we jump in there, and it'll be fun. But this should be a short video. Let's jump in and talk about Wedge. So first, Wedge is a universe character, and he's got some really interesting things going for him. So 70, 18, 9, and 10. That's actually like really good base stats, to be honest with you. And then his abilities all follow a very similar format throughout all the characters. So he's got Avoid Defeat and Evade. So he can be really annoying to kill. And he's got Grenades 10. I don't really love the Grenades 10 power. If it's 20 or more, I like it, but not a big fan of it. But he's got interesting commander effects. So pilot followers gain Evade, which is kind of fun. Now you'd think there's not a whole lot of people that it applies to, but there's some key individuals which it can actually be pretty good. So his hit points for 22 is his hit points for 22 is pretty good. Like it's really I'd say it's great hit points for 22. It's great defense, great. His range survivability is awesome because he has both evade and avoid defeat. However, he is missing mobile attack like the next ones have, so it's kind of like a damper. But yeah, hard to hit and hard to kill, that's for sure. And melee survivability, he's got nothing helping him, but at least he has good stats and he has avoid defeat. And again, avoid defeat is like a 25% chance of survival. So it's not like it's going to work that often, but it's nice to have it along with evade. So range survivability is great. His attack is pretty high for 22 as well, but his max damage is pitiful. So the Wedge Antilles in general, all of them, they don't do any damage. That's not what they're meant for. They just don't. They got everything else is like pretty nice, but they don't have any damage. So special abilities are nice. They're that kind of survivalist framework. The survivalist abilities, they combine well, but that's kind of all there is to it, and they don't necessarily like work every time, but they're good to have. And he's not crazy versatile, and the only reason I say that is because he's got good stats, but he just doesn't do any damage. He just doesn't. And having grades is okay, not dying is okay. So like, you can kind of have him as a piece to kind of work around and do stuff, and you can make him better with commander effects too if you get the right people as well. But I just feel like versatility is not the greatest thing, and when it comes to just wedges in general, I'd say he's pretty solid. He's a solid character. He's good. 3 is a good rating. That's solid. I think that fits him well, and his commander effect I'd say is above average, because his commander effect can make characters like Biggs, Luke Skywalker Hoth Pilot Unleashed, which is a great one, and then Luke Skywalker Hero of Yavin, which could really benefit from evade, helps those guys out tremendously. And then can help other random pilots you throw in there, like Rebel Pilot or Cloud, I don't know, other crap like that. But I think giving these three guys evade through his commander effect is a great opportunity. So I'm sure some of you've done those. But anyways, on Blue Milk, he only had a 6.8. That's a very average rating on Blue Milk. I think that might be a little too low, personally. I know he's an older character, so he's kind of outshined, but I kind of like what I see here. I kind of like his pairing with some of those characters. It can make him real scary in Rebel squads. And in general, when you want to buy a character like this, he's so cheap. In general, all these guys are very cheap, but I like him. I think he's a good character. He's really solid. He has his clear, interesting advantages, but he does no damage, and that's his downside at all. So the next one gets rid of the commander effect and loses some stats, but in favor of having mobile attack, which is really fun. But this guy costs only 13, so like again, ends up having the same rating. So he loses, like I mentioned, like you just saw, going back. He basically loses one or two stats. So yeah, loses 20, loses 1, and loses 1 here. But he keeps all the same powers and gains mobile, which is really good. However, just like before, he does no damage. Similar to before, like his range survivability is excellent. It's excellent for kind of for a 13. You got solid, really good defense, and you have all these powers. Like against range stuff, you're going to be in great shape. His melee survivability, though, again, it's not great, but because he has mobile, at least he can move around. It's hard to kill him with avoid defeat, or it's harder to kill him, I should say. So again, base stats really nice, no damage. Great abilities. His powers, they combine nicely, but again, he does no damage, so it's not like they're the greatest things in the world, but it is nice to have all three of these things to not die. Versatility, I don't know. I don't think I like kind of what he can do. Like Grenades 10 is a versatile thing to have, and it's hard to kill him. He can kind of move around and stuff. But if you want to make him more versatile, you have to make him more versatile, I'd say, with commander effects. So I just don't think he has the most. Like, if he did more damage, then I would totally like to say he's like great in terms of versatility, but he doesn't. So that kind of holds him back for me. And I think when it comes to the wedge score, I personally like him a little bit more than the last one, just because of his cost. He's such a low cost piece. You can throw him in for cheap, and he can be an annoying character. And if you add people to, maybe give him twin attack, which is easy to do with the Zerka Scientist and other characters too, that can maybe improve that damage output a little bit more. It's totally fine. And then Blue Milk score was actually worse, 6.18. Again, I can see where they're coming from. He doesn't do any damage, but he is cheap. I do like the fact that he's got great stats for being cheap and just can't die. I think there's a lot of value in that if you set him up right, but I think the Blue Milk score in this case is too low, in my opinion, but I got to respect it. And he's also very cheap. So this guy, he's got such a great combination of stats and survivabilities for his cost, like probably some of the best. But he is held back by the inability to actually do damage. But again, it's kind of harder to fix it, but it's not impossible. So in general, he's good. He's a 3.3. He's a good character. You can mix him with the right squads. You can make him do some nice things for you. But I do like this wedge in general. I said I like this one more, but I like this guy that he's so cheap with the good stuff. But the last one, I really liked his commander effect because it can specifically make some really good characters or characters that have high potential in Rebels be really, really, really scary. So there's that you have to kind of have in mind too. But let's move on to the Rio Wedge, the best one. This guy's insane. So, okay, he's a 23, very cheap, all the same stuff. He's got great hit points now. He dropped grenades for accurate shot, 100% worth it. And his commander effect is insanity. Like, followers gain evade and mobile attack. That's just one step below Recan, whose allies gain it. So I don't know what else to say about this character, but he's basically a central, pivotal, cornerstone part of the New Republic. So just going over, great hit points, excellent defense. For 23, 18 defense on a shooter is amazing. His range survivability is incredible because he's got those improved stats. And he's got, again, avoid defeat, evade, mobile, and accurate. So all those things, he can just kind of hit and run. You're never going to hit him. And his attack is also very solid. Not as crazy as the other ones. In melee situations, he doesn't really have the bells and whistles for melee. But avoid defeat can help him, and being able to move around and shoot helps. Again, damage isn't there. His special abilities are awesome because he dropped grenades for accurate shot. Even though he doesn't do the damage, just these 4 special abilities are some of the best combinations you can get. So I gave his ability combos a 4. I would have given him more if he at least did more damage, if he had twin attack or anything. But all of these powers together is so good, but he just doesn't do any. He doesn't do any damage with it, just like all the other wedges. He's very versatile as well because he has accurate shot this time. Again, doesn't do the damage, but accurate shot really helps a lot. He can at least kind of like be more effective. He can kind of hit people when necessary, or heck, you just use him combined fire since he doesn't do any damage anyway. But then his wedge score, he's a 5. And so I'm cheating right now. There's only a couple people in the game with absurd commander effects. And so for those characters, I just basically am giving them a 10. And essentially what the 10 is I'm just doubling I'm just doubling their commander effect score. And I'm only going to do that for like 3 or 4 characters just to kind of give you a little I'm just going to do that for about 3 or 4 characters. That's it. That's all. And I'm giving it to him. So I'm giving him that 10. So I'm doubling his commander effect score because this is truly an outrageous commander effect. Again, doesn't affect everyone. There are a couple commanders in New Republic that do end up missing out, but there are a ton of amazing characters that benefit. And those are huge benefits. So his blue milk score is through the roof, 9.07. That's about equivalent to like a 5, basically, on my scale. Extremely awesome. And this guy, very cheap, and he's a survivalist and a mobile sharpshooter. But yeah, best wedge by far, amazing commander effect, and the New Republic is so dangerous now. So let's move on to the final scores. So when taking a look at all the final scores here, again, the first 2 wedges are kind of similar. They have their trade-offs, one for like kind of making a commander effect and stats versus being cheap and all those things. And then you have Wedge General, Wedge Antilles, which is just outrageous. So they all have similar flavors, but you can see here that across the board, for their costs, their hit points, their defense, and their range survivability is excellent. Doesn't matter which one you use. For their cost point, those things are fantastic. However, again, they're not meant for melee, or they don't have much to help them in melee, with the exception of avoid defeat. Again, this should probably be 2.5, but whatever. Their attack's always usually good too. Like they can hit their targets, but they do no damage. So that's the one side. You're not going to use this guy for the damage. You'll use him for the commander effects, or just kind of the other shenanigans you can pull. They all got good special abilities. Their abilities combine well. They flow together to be useful for the most part. They're not the most versatile. Like they could be more versatile but did more damage. This guy is more versatile because he does have accurate shot, and I think that is a very important thing to make it that way. And then commander effects. I like Wedge Antilles' commander effect. It's very specific and only affects a couple people, but it does them really well. It helps them a lot, and it's a very good thing to help them with too, by giving evade to some of those amazing pilot characters. And then General Wedge Antilles, I labeled it in blue and gave it a 10 just to indicate like that's an incredible commander effect. And overall wedge score, I don't think these are bad wedges at all. I think they're like just kind of good, above average, like, really solid characters. And then he is excellent all the way through, so I have to give him a 5. And then looking at Blue Milk again, we got 8.6. That's an average score. I don't think he's that bad, but it's what the audience says. It's what the community says. And then Wedge Antilles Red 2, an even worse score. But again, for 13 points, you're just getting so much for someone that costs nothing. So, in my opinion, I think he's cool. But General Wedge Antilles is fantastic. So all in all, they're all really fun. The Rebel ones are interesting, but you kind of have to do your pros and cons depending on how you want to build your squad or what you want to use them for. But General Wedge Antilles, like, he's kind of just, you use him in every New Republic squad probably. Maybe not every one, but he's epic. One of the best. There's very few characters in Star Wars miniatures in the base sets that is rated over a 9 by the community. And he's one of them, and he deserves it wholeheartedly. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, please subscribe, and please leave any comments about Wedge. Let me know your thoughts on this character. I'd love to hear what you think about him, situations where he's really good, maybe things I messed up or didn't quite see on these. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in general. But yeah, and I also hope you enjoy the new rating system. I think it'll be more accurate now that I'm incorporating just how good the character is, not just among characters of his cost group, but also the blue milk score, because even though I think the blue milk score is pretty, it's not a good sample, or I guess I should say it's not a good survey, because it's just kind of like people, giving tens and ones if someone's good or bad. I still think it's a valuable thing to indicate kind of what the community in general thinks about it. And then the wedge score as well. And so to get the overall scores here, I have a special equation going on the background that kind of weights these different things separately. It gives a lot of weight to the wedge score and the blue milk score, but then also doesn't leave these out entirely. But I want to make sure I'm getting a really solid outlook at the end of the day when it comes to these characters. So anyway, I'll leave it with that, and I'll see you all next time.